This video is without a doubt the best information I've seen on Kickstarter, specifically for Amazon sellers. And it's done by my friend Vance, who has raised more than $7 million on Kickstarter, so he knows what he's doing. And maybe the most interesting thing that he goes into is the actual examples of products that really worked and how the campaigns actually work, how he built the list. So if you're a little bit beginner to Kickstarter, you probably want to watch the first half as well. But if you're more advanced, you can probably skip to the second half where we go into things like how to actually build a list to launch to with Kickstarter and some of the more
know all of the challenges associated with launching on Amazon. I mean, the reality right now is that Amazon is becoming a little bit more challenging. Definitely more challenging than it was a couple of years ago, and then definitely more challenging than it was a couple of years before that. So it's there's lots of challenges coming with Amazon, and a lot of them have to do with increased competition. And regardless of whether or not you're new or you're a pretty big, you have a pretty big business in Amazon, you're going to run into these challenges that affect your ability to launch and scale products because we're just seeing a lot of competition out there. So what we're trying to do here is to think about what we can do to launch a product in a way that's a little bit different than what everybody else is thinking. So that's the whole point of considering the Kickstarter launch model and seeing how we can integrate that with the rest of your launch strategy. So that's what we're going to look at today. So I want to get out of the way 3 common FAQs that I get. Usually these are the most 3 common ones. So the first question is Kickstarter or crowdfunding? So I'm gonna explain what that means in a second. But is Kickstarter a platform that replaces Amazon or Shopify? So people think that they have to learn a different platform. It might be like a Walmart.com, or it might be an Etsy or something different. This is really not the case. What we're looking to do with with Kickstarter, is Kickstarter is a launch platform. So once we launch on the platform, the main event is scaling to your platform of choice afterwards. So whether or not you're on Amazon or Shopify, that's really what we're looking to accomplish. And so this goes into the second question: can you launch on Amazon and Shopify after? And the answer is definitely yes. Once you launch a Kickstarter campaign, you have an audience, you have all of the creative assets that you've prepared so that you can launch that Kickstarter campaign. So you can immediately move that over to launching your Amazon product listing page, your Shopify store if you want to do that, or any other channel of your choice. And last point is what Danny mentioned earlier is, do you need 100% brand new innovative product? And does it work for only certain categories? The answer is no. We've seen products successful in all sorts of different categories. So we're going to dive into that today. So who this works for, whether or not if you're launching your very first product and you're just looking for a way to mitigate risk, or just launch it in a way that's a little bit more unique, that allows you to build that list and build that audience, this is for you. But also the common misconception with Kickstarter is that this is for getting funds. So a lot of people that might have bigger brands or like a lot more successful businesses, they might think, oh, this is not for me. I don't need the funding. But what this does as a launch model for people that have larger businesses is that it allows you to really, really amp up your cash flow. And this allows you to scale faster. So you can obviously benefit from less risk, but at the same time, being able to launch on a platform like Kickstarter allows you to get ahead on your cash flow and scale your product much more quickly when it's time to moving onto Amazon. So
yeah, and one quick thing to jump in there for those of you listening who are newer Amazon sellers, who don't really understand the cash flow game as much. Cash flow problems don't go away as you grow. They only actually get worse. So a lot of the brands that we work with at Kenji ROI, who are 8-figure sellers or even 9-figure sellers, they don't have less cash flow problems. They have bigger cash flow problems, and they have very large lines of credit that are hundreds of thousands of dollars or even millions of dollars for the larger brands, that they are purchasing the inventory on this line of credit, right? Because it's just a huge cash flow moving game. So even a lot of these larger, more established brands are taking advantage of this because it's great for their cash flow and it lowers their risk, right? So don't just think this is something for brand new brands that have limited cash flow in the beginning. It is for them too, right? But it's not only for these smaller brands.
Exactly. And like you said, some of these bigger brands, they have so much more to lose and so much more risk if they're placing bigger orders and they're trying to scale. So this affects new companies, but also larger brands just as much, to be able to get on top of the cash flow game. Cool. And in the spirit of this, I wanted to share one of my favorite examples before we jump into it, to show who this works for. And Danny, I think we talked about this on the podcast as well. This is a really interesting company that was founded by a solo female entrepreneur. She is not an e-commerce entrepreneur. She has no idea how to launch products. She didn't have any e-commerce background or experience, and she made a hot sauce that she wanted to launch on Kickstarter. So, well, she didn't want to launch on Kickstarter. She just wanted to launch this. She came to us, and we said, why not try considering Kickstarter, because this might be an awesome way for you to build the foundations for your audience. So she launched the campaign. She did really well. So she built a massive audience, and she ended up raising about $120,000 in her campaign and acquired a handful of fans and lots of really positive PR, which is something that we'll talk about later as a benefit, a side benefit of launching a successful campaign, is that people start talking about you. So she took this result, and what ended up happening was she ended up doing she didn't end up doing really well with this. So what ended up happening was she had the opportunity to be able to take the results from the launch, scale into Amazon, and she's right now doing 250,000 a month. Last time we checked, on Amazon. She's selling on her own website. She has 120,000 unique visitors every month on her website, and she's now selling in Costco, Whole Foods, and Walmart. So very cool. And all of this came as a bit of an opportunity that she kind of acquired from being able to launch this successful campaign. So
awesome. So not a particularly innovative product. It's a hot sauce.
It's a hot sauce.
Right?
I mean,
it's not like some crazy innovative thing that no one's done before.
Exactly. So, I mean, if you know anything about hot sauces and buying just chili sauces or anything like that in a Chinese grocery store, they're like a couple dollars. She built this massive brand where they're selling this for $15 and it's killing it on Amazon. If you search them up, you'll see really cool stuff on Amazon and on their own website as well. So she's built a massive audience that really care about what she does, and she brought this to be able to scale to multiple channels and diversify. So that's an example of using this. I always say that the Kickstarter campaign is not the main event. The main event is scaling your business. So the Kickstarter campaign is a precursor to allow you to move into whatever platform that you want it to scale to, and this allows you to be able to build up to that level that you want to build with your brand.
Yeah, another marketing strategy to add to your arsenal, so to speak.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
So how are we going to get value today? There's two main goals. So first, I find that most people don't really understand how Kickstarter works. So we're going to talk about the pre-order crowdfunding model and how this is really the only way to launch that allows you to launch your product and build your brand without upfront inventory risk. And then the second thing that we'll cover is essentially how to go through what we call the launch accelerator blueprint. So that's our process of using this launch process to start building an audience, building a brand. So we're doing a 2-for-1. We're not just launching this and hoping for a successful launch. We want that too, but at the same time, we want to use this to build an audience that we really care about, or that really cares about us as well. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. And that's our theme. So stay for this entire presentation. You're going to want to. We'll do a full breakdown and Q&A at the end, and a gift that I'll offer to you guys later on. So let's jump right into it, if that's okay with you, Danny.
Yeah, let's rock and roll, man. I'm interested to see especially the audience building part of that, because I know that's a really crucial point, not just for Kickstarter, but to actually just build an email list and an audience that you can launch, Amazon promotions or whatever else you're going to launch to them, right? It's not just a Kickstarter only isolated audience like you have on Amazon, that those are Amazon's customers and you can't really market to them, right?
Exactly. They're your customers and you're in touch with your customers, which makes a lot of sense, right? So, okay, let's jump right into it. So let's talk about what crowdfunding is. Crowdfunding is a model. It's not isolated to e-commerce, but this is what we're going to be talking about today. It's essentially, the idea is we're going to put out a product, a concept, and people are going to say, hey, we like this concept, we want to support you, and they're going to pre-order the product through our campaign. So this is used, like we mentioned already, as the first part of our strategy where we're launching the product, and we use this to raise funds often for the initial manufacturing order, but at the same time we use this as an opportunity to build our audience as well. So this is an example of the campaign that we worked with, essentially private label. They've done a really good job with the branding and the packaging, but this is a fountain and a pen ink that they've marketed as the world's most magical fountain pen ink. And these guys raised about $165,000 on Kickstarter. So that's a really interesting product that you can see really weird products do well. So within crowdfunding, there's two main platforms, Kickstarter and Indiegogo. These are going to be the biggest platforms that you'll be working with. So from now on, I'm just going to refer to everything as Kickstarter to represent crowdfunding. And so what is special about these e-commerce shoppers? Well, these Kickstarter shoppers. Well, some of these shoppers are actually some of the most wealthy e-commerce shoppers that exist anywhere online, because these people are willing to pay sometimes $50, $100, or a couple $100 for a product that does not exist. And there's a chance, at least when Kickstarter started, that this is a possibility that the products don't deliver. Nowadays, most of the projects deliver, and that's what we're going to aim to do, of course. But these people are willing to put down money for something that they might not be wanting to, they might not actually get a chance to receive it. So we know that these people have disposable income. These people are early adopters. They want to be the first to grab something. They want to be, they're proud of being the first to sponsor or support a brand because it allows them to kind of brag to their friends or feel good about it. But they get something exciting about being able to support new people or new brands launch products. And what's really interesting about these people is that a lot of these people actually, a lot of our backers and our customers that we've acquired through Kickstarter, they're what we call super backers. So that's essentially, these are people that are on the platform, kind of just looking for different campaigns to support, and they're there just kind of like, hey, what do I like? Do I like whiskey? Do I like dog products or whatever? And they're kind of looking around to see if there's anything interesting that they like. So that on average, these people are backing 6 to 7 projects in their lifetime. Some much more. So very, very cool segment of an audience, which isn't, they're not there penny pinching, they're not there comparing the prices. They're really there to look for something that they like and spend money on something that they think is really cool.
That's a really good point, Vance. I didn't really think about it that way, but customers who have enough disposable income to be spending $50, $100 or more on these random products they're not going to receive for months down the line, or may not receive at all, probably qualifies them as someone who has, if not a higher income, at least someone who's willing to spend money.
Sure. So a really, really interesting customer segment. And that's what we like to work with, because when we launch a product, we want people that really like it to support it. And these are going to be people that buy product number 2, they're going to buy accessory number 1 and accessory number 2, and they're just going to be all around good customers that have a strong lifetime value. So
yeah, and I think that'll be a much higher quality email list too, because it's not that hard to build an email list, subscriber numbers, but a quality email list is a lot harder, right?
Exactly.
Like I can go create a Facebook ads campaign to some funny video that's not that relevant to my product and have 10,000 people on an email list, but I'm going to get a 0.2% click-through rate on that email list, right?
Exactly,
So
yeah.
that's what's interesting to me, is actually having a quality email list of people that are qualified buyers. You don't need that big of an email list of those people.
Exactly. I'd rather have a 10% conversion rate on a small list than a 0.02% conversion rate on a massive list, right? So it's like you said, it's about quality, not quantity. And it's about having qualified leads, people that really care about what you're trying to do. So really, really good point. So why is this model so favorable for sellers? Well, we know the traditional Amazon model or Shopify model or just e-commerce model in general, where we place the order, we pay for the inventory in advance before we get any orders. We start selling this, and it arrives at the warehouse. We start selling this. If it's Amazon, we're investing in our launch strategy. If it's e-commerce or Shopify, your own platform, you're going to be just like doing something a little bit different. But the idea is that you're hoping that you can start making some sales, start ranking, and only when you're successful, then you can recoup the cost of the initial investment. It's almost like a sunk cost. So how does Kickstarter work? Well, Kickstarter works by launching, what we do is we launch a limited time campaign. So like I said, this doesn't stay on the website forever. This is something that can run up to 60 days. Backers or customers are going to be placing pre-orders during the campaign. And once the campaign closes, let's say at the end of 45 days, 15 days later, Kickstarter pays you the cash. And from there, you have this cash to be able to place your manufacturing order. And then once you receive your inventory from your supplier, then you can fulfill this to your backer. So this is it literally flips the entire model upside down. And you can start seeing why this is going to be so favorable as an e-commerce launch model compared to the traditional launch model. So this is an example of a towel that launched, and I mean, it's a bath towel, and it did over 300,000 on their launch on Kickstarter, and this was 13 days left to go when we took the screenshot. So it doesn't have to be crazy revolutionary products. It just has to be well done in terms of well-presented product, really understanding your target audience. And
Vance, are you trying to screen share right now? Because we can't see your screen at the moment.
What happened? Have you not been seeing my screen this entire time?
I haven't. Have you guys been seeing it? I don't know. Maybe let us know in the chat here. No, Nopwa.
Oh,
I'm assuming that means nope.
Okay.
You should have permissions. All right, there we go. Now it's showing up.
Okay, so we missed a lot of sexy photos stuff here, but this is the fountain pen ink. This is the stats on Kickstarter and Indiegogo, and this is taking a look at the traditional model versus the Kickstarter model. So thanks for catching that, Danny, because we could have gone this entire presentation without.
Yeah, I just saw by what you're saying. Okay, so that's the bath towel, and that's a pretty regular looking bath towel.
It had some cool material concept, but it is a pretty normal product. So
Yeah.
they just did a
Okay.
really good job at positioning this product to do well. And then this is the one I was mentioning earlier, the fountain pen ink that we worked with. Essentially, this is a private label-y type of product, and they just did a really good job with packaging and really, really good job at presentation and nailing their target audience.
Yeah, that is a perfect example of a great private label product, because I'd imagine it's very easy to find a manufacturer to create some fountain pen ink and then create some really beautiful packaging and branding.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's excellent.
Yeah. Cool. So what else? Did you miss anything maybe I can show you here? No, this is just our goals for today. Okay, so we're all good. So we're caught up. Cool. So this is why it's favorable for sellers if we compare this side by side, and you can very clearly see when the launch models are side by side that one is going to be more favorable, at least for a few different reasons, which we'll talk about in a few seconds. So what is it that we need to launch on Kickstarter? So this is a really important question, and this is what contributes to the benefits that we experience. So what we need to launch on Kickstarter is two main things. So the first is we need a real prototype of the product. So in this case, it's a working towel, or if you have, in my case, I've launched coffee products, and you just need like an actual prototype that shows that this product is actually a real thing. And with the so other than the actual prototype itself, we need the campaign page. So the campaign page is similar, or you can look at it as your Amazon product listing page, which is essentially the page where you're going to put your media assets, your photo, your video, your copy. And so all of these are assets you normally need for your regular e-commerce or Amazon launch anyways. But the only thing that you don't need when it comes to Kickstarter is you don't need inventory. So that's really the element that becomes favorable. And we're going to talk about why that's going to be so interesting for all of us. So why is this a better launch strategy? There's 5 main things that we're going to cover today. There's lots of reasons, but I'm just going to cover the 5 main ones that we find people are most excited about when it comes to using Kickstarter as a launch model. So we're going to go into each of these individually. The campaign you're going to see here is one of the campaigns that I launched for my my coffee brand, and it's a cold brew system back in quite a few years ago. But this is one of the first projects that I launched on Kickstarter. So this ended up doing about 950,000 after upsells. So why is this a favorable model? The first thing is that it really does flip the model upside down to eliminate risk. So with a traditional Amazon launch, you require a significant amount of investment with upfront the inventory if you're going to do launches and giveaways. And it's possible that the launch may or may not be successful. Of course, we want it to be successful, but there's a chance that it might not be. And what this leads to is it leads to more risk. So what we're looking to do with the Kickstarter launch, so with using our lab launch approach for Kickstarter, what we're looking to do is we want to launch and sell pre-orders with only the prototype. So what we've invested is we've invested the same things that we would invest in an Amazon launch when it comes to developing the product, when it comes to creating all the assets, but we don't need the inventory, which means that once we're successful, we're able to essentially start, we're able to be ahead of our cash flow game. So this is going to be the next point. So positive cash flow. The way that we look at Amazon launches, and this is how I looked at it forever, and this is how really the only way to look at it is that our launches are meant to be sunk costs. So we're hoping that it's going to be successful, and that eventually when the product becomes profitable, we're going to regain some of the costs of investing into the product launch. So and in many cases, this is where the cash flow comes in that we talked about, Danny. If your product doesn't rank or doesn't do well, or maybe it takes a long time to do well, this is going to create a lot of challenges with cash flow, and this affects new sellers, but also very, very much so large sellers as well. So with the lab Kickstarter launch approach, what we're looking to do is once we have a successful launch, we get that cash immediately. So we're actually getting ahead of our cash flow. So when we get ahead of our cash flow, it means that we have extra cash that we can decide to invest in maybe more inventory. Let's say we raised more than we needed to, and now we can order more. Maybe we can invest in marketing. We can invest in doing other types of initiatives within the brand or for that product that allows us to be able to scale quicker once we have that cash, rather than waiting months or like even sometimes like over a year to be able to regain your cash flow. So those are the 2 main reasons when it comes to financially, people are really interested in the Kickstarter launch model.
Yeah, and guys, side note on the cash flow. I know this because I talk to a lot of Amazon sellers on a regular basis, and I know that most of you Amazon sellers are not defining clearly enough when a product is a dead product on a launch. So a lot of you guys are launching a product, and then you're sinking the money into the ads, you're sinking the money into the launch, and then it's just not working, but you haven't defined where is the point where you kill the product. And then so you're like, start to invest more into Facebook ads, and then you try this, and then you try this, and then it just can sink even more money too. So that's just an important note for you guys. When your Amazon launches, just figure out the financials first. When is it dead? And just define that and actually kill it if it's not working after a certain point, right?
Great point. Yeah, so that's why when it comes to the financial reasons, that's the numbers of why people care about this model. And this is really interesting because it allows us to really rethink the way that we do our launches. So what else? So apart from the financial benefits, one of the biggest things that you hinted at earlier, Danny, was to be able to really build an audience and a community. So we know that it's difficult to grow a sustainable brand on Amazon because Amazon's customers, the buyers on Amazon, are not our own customers. They're meant to be Amazon's customers. We're going about all these roundabout ways of trying to get insert cards and like interesting things. We might get creative, but at the end of the day, the way that the platform is structured, it's not really meant for us to build our own audience from that. And what this means is that you're missing out on a lot of opportunities to launch and grow your products and your brand. For me, when I first started, I was in the kitchenware category, and I launched my product. My first product was okay. It was decently successful, eventually failed, but it was successful at the time. And then I launched a second product and a third product. And it actually made no difference to me when I launched my second or third product. Nobody recognized my brand. Nobody cared. It wasn't that I had any advantages of being able to launch my second or third product. It was just as if I was starting from scratch every time. But imagine, like Danny mentioned, if you have a list and you have an audience of people that care about what you do, and you're able to say, hey guys, I'm launching a new product. Can you, do you want like a 50% discount, even like a 50% discount or 20% discount or something like that? These people that like what you do, they're going to be jumping on this to support you. So this is a really, really kind of big benefit of being able to take advantage of this launch funnel. And when you're not able to take advantage of an audience, it really limits the ability to scale your business in a quick way and in an effective way. So you're always you're pretty much going to be starting from scratch almost every single time in that sense. So with our approach, the idea is that once you acquire customers, these are your fans. You communicate directly with them. They know your story. They feel invested about who you are as a brand, what you're doing, and they want to support you. And so this is really, Kevin Kelly talks about getting your first 1,000 true fans and how that's going to allow to set the foundations for your brand. This is what we're really looking to accomplish here by building into this. So a great example of this is one of my own products. So my first product launched and it did almost $1 million. The next product that launched, actually, it was an idea from our community that said, hey, why don't you consider creating a glass? And this is a cool concept. So we actually got this idea from our audience saying, hey, this is what we want you to build. And of course, we know it's going to be successful because they've asked for it and they're going to want to buy it. So what we ended up doing is we launched the second campaign. And and we asked our audience, like, hey, can do you want this product? Do you want to support us? We're launching our second product through crowdfunding. And it doesn't sound like a big deal, but 5% of our previous backers, our previous customers, decided to support our second campaign, our second coffee campaign. And 5% doesn't sound like a big deal, but this actually led to about almost $40,000 raised. So imagine being able to launch a product and have your customers being, yes, I'm in, and that contributing like $40,000, maybe even $20,000 is like, that's enough often for a first order, right? So
and that's at zero acquisition cost. That's the thing that people got to remember as well, is that those repeat buyers, you already paid to acquire them the first time. And if they buy again, that's zero as pure profitable acquisition. You pay $0 for that, right?
Exactly. That's it. That's exactly right. So being able to build this audience really makes a big difference for you to launch your product 2, product 3, accessories, whatever it might be. And often they don't have to be crazy launches like Kickstarter. They could even just be like, hey, we're just launching this on our website, or hey, we're just launching our accessory on Amazon. And that could be a massive difference for you to be able to scale into something like that when you have an audience that cares about what you're doing. The next thing is something that Amazon sellers don't really think about in this capacity, is that when it comes to launching on Amazon, traditional Amazon launches, successful launches don't really produce any recognition or any type of results off Amazon. So you might have a handful of reviews on Amazon, but that's it. You have a page that has your reviews on it. When it comes to successful Kickstarter launches, you have really the opportunity to build a lot of PR and social proof as a part of the campaign launch. So what you're looking to do is be able to build credibility across multiple platforms. You are able to build SEO, and people, when they search your product through these maybe blog posts or the Kickstarter campaign, they're able to find you online so that they feel comfortable with your brand. And a lot of these will actually help you either expand to new channels, or at least be able to acquire customers in a way that's going to be different than the possibility of just acquiring customers on Amazon. So this is an example of a handful of features that we got, and all these were free. They weren't paid features in any type of capacity. They were just people that loved what we were doing when we launched this product, and they started featuring us on a lot of different publications.
Yeah, and that PR is more valuable than a lot of people realize as well. So I think a lot of people, they look at PR as an old school marketing tactic, right? It's like, who cares? Like, who actually looks at, Forbes or these kind of things? But my agency, Kenji ROI, has had huge benefit from PR, not necessarily because of the actual, social proof and being on those publications. That's part of it, but mostly because of the backlinks for SEO from websites like Yahoo, Forbes, Uncreate, like all these big authority websites. If they post a link back to your website, your SEO is going to be hugely benefited from that. And SEO is so powerful. Like, the better you can get your SEO, the more consistent customers are coming in. You don't have to really feed that machine. It just continually kind of feeds you customers. So PR is hugely, hugely valuable in today's digital marketing.
Exactly, and it's a new model of PR. It's not the traditional, like you said, it's not the traditional old school PR. It's just different ways for you to get your brand out there that people care about, and allows you to get benefits in different ways, like SEO and residual kind of traffic and credibility. And the last one is that launching on crowdfunding allows you to have different opportunities for diversification and scaling. So if you are successful on Amazon, you're successful on Amazon. But if you're successful on Kickstarter, like the hot sauce brand that I mentioned earlier, you're able to start building foundations for different types of channels that you can be successful on. So an example with our products is that we ended up getting a lot of people reaching out to us who were coffee distributors in their own countries, and they wanted to carry our products. So now we have distribution in 17 different countries across the world, where people buy our product from wholesale, and they distribute to coffee shops or giftware shops around the world. So it allows you to do this, and allows you to actually start building a presence in other types of channels. And with the example with the hot sauce, she was able to get to retail like Costco, Walmart, and Whole Foods, and all those types of things. So having a successful campaign really allows you to be able to take advantage of this in different ways, that allows you to diversify and scale your business, and offer opportunities for expanding your potential revenue channels. So those are the top 5, and I'm curious if you're watching this right now, which one is the most appealing to you? What's most interesting? Maybe you can just drop it into the chat, and this is 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5. I'm curious to know what you guys think is most appealing based on where you're at right now. And so there's
just knowing Amazon sellers, I would say everyone's super interested in the building a good list, the email list. That's what everyone really wants to spend their time on. But really, the biggest is eliminating risk. That's the one that's like your accountant will tell you is the most important thing, that you probably don't care as much, because the shiny object is the email list for all Amazon sellers typically.
Exactly. Cool. So there's a lot more benefits. For example, we won't go into this today, but the lab approach for launching on crowdfunding allows you to validate your product. So if you have an interesting product that you want to launch that you're not sure has the demand on Amazon, because you're interested in this niche, this is an opportunity for you to get validation and feedback before you launch it. So there's lots of interesting benefits. We won't go into that today, but let's dive into the second part. And our goal here is to give you an overview of there's only so much we can do, but I'll do my best to kind of give you the overview of what it takes to launch on Kickstarter. So my story, which I mentioned earlier, was I did really well with my first product launch. The next year that I was scaling on Amazon, I really messed up huge. 10 of the 12 products I failed. And the biggest challenge for me was that I didn't have cash flow is a massive issue. And the second thing was I wasn't building a brand where people cared about the fact that I was launching a second, third, or fourth product. So those were the biggest challenges for me when it came to scaling on Amazon. And that led to, I told you earlier, 10 products out of the 12 products failing. But since then, that's how I discovered crowdfunding and started using this as a launch model to at least initially launch the product. So there's going to be 6 steps that we're going to go through, and this is just going to give you a high-level overview of what the process looks like. So the first one is determining your USP. So the most important thing when it comes to Kickstarter campaigns, when you see Kickstarter campaigns, is that they have some type of hook about them. So whether the hook is something interesting or unique, or it's presenting this kind of in a different way to an existing audience, this is what you definitely need, something like this when it comes. So I'm going to spend a little bit more extra time on this one to make sure that we kind of nailed this. So this is an example of a cocktail shaker. This is one of the categories that I wanted to launch in when I first started Amazon. These guys, it's a pretty standard cocktail shaker, but they really position this as kind of like the high-end cocktail shaker that's going to give you like an elevated experience. These guys did about 470,000 with their launch on Kickstarter. So like I said, this works with lots of different niches. We've worked with things in apparel, beauty, kitchen, lots of interesting categories. So, but the most important thing to focus on when it comes to determining your USP, this is something that we don't really think about much on Amazon because we just do keyword research, and then we of course can optimize things like the title and like the bullet points, and often people don't even do that well. I'm sure Danny can definitely help you with that. But the idea is that people don't really think about how this product is going to be positioned if they didn't have a pre-existing understanding of the best way to present it. So we have 3 different levels of how we can allow our product to stand out. So the first one is the easiest. We call it edge 1. The second one is medium. There's 2 edges that fall into that. And then the last one is hard. So edge 1 is what we call product positioning. So product positioning is simply changing the way that you present the product concept of the idea. So essentially you're emphasizing the benefits or the features in a different way that makes it appealing. So this is a really good example. I like this category. This is one of the categories I was going to launch in initially when I started launching products on Amazon, was travel packing cubes. So there's dozens of pages of this. But what these guys did was they did a really good job at positioning a feature that a lot of these other packing cubes already had. So a lot of packing cubes had like this 2-sided thing, but these guys, what they did was they positioned this as one side is for your clean, and then the other side is for your dirty. And they emphasized the percentage. Really, their whole campaign was emphasizing like the percentage of space that you can save when packing. So they did a really good job with that, and they ended up doing a little bit over $280,000.
And so I think Dave's question kind of ties into this here with product positioning. He's kind of asking it, how important is the brand story? Do you think that's a really important part of the positioning, like trying to tell a great story about the brand, or is it really just more focused on the actual product USPs, would you say?
Yeah, it depends on what you're going for with your brand. So if you are maybe a very personal brand and you think that this is going to be appealing to your type of audience, you could focus on the brand story. But other times people focus very much on the product story. They might focus on the way that the product was manufactured, who is making it, the way that it goes through its iterations to eventually become the product that it is. So there's lots of ways to focus on this. So the answer is it depends on your audience, and it depends on your product category of what you think would be appealing to that audience.
Yeah, that's a good point. So like if you are just selling a product that has no unique selling proposition, but it's, made by a farmer's family that grew up on eating corn and whatever your brand story is, it's probably not going to work. It'll be complementary though, if you had a really good brand story, but not necessarily like what's going to sell the product, right?
Exactly, yeah. So this is another example I really like. This is blackout curtain. So obviously this is not a new category of product, but what these guys did was they actually positioned this as a portable blackout curtain. Such an awesome product and positioning. So they took an existing product, they positioned it as portable, and they raised $295,000 on their launch.
That's a great example. That's a perfect example, because I think these examples are really great for people, because I know a lot of people get stuck on I don't want to go create an invention because that's expensive, and prototyping, you ask a manufacturer to create some custom prototype and they come back with a $10,000 quote and things like this. But I think it's really great for people to see these kind of examples to show you don't really have to change very much of what's there, right? Even just positioning something that exists already as something else.
Exactly, yeah. And this is the best example of this, is these after socks. So this is kind of like the no shoe socks trend that's been blowing up in the past handful of years. Maybe you've seen these before, Danny. But what these guys did was they just positioned this exact product that is existing already to a female audience, and they called it after socks. So it was for females that went out the night before and they don't want to carry their heels and they don't want to be wearing heels the next morning. Wear these after socks. So that did about 93,000 euros. So that's another great example of positioning. And so that's the example of presenting the product to a different audience with kind of an interesting flair. And
right,
this
what was the product before it was positioned as that? I've never seen that.
It's just making shoes, or like no shoe socks. People would walk with them. They can hike with them. They can walk around with them. It's the trend of not wearing shoes. It's just wearing socks instead, essentially.
More towards the outdoorsy kind of crowd.
Exactly. Yeah.
Was marketed before. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is one of my absolute favorites. This is called the Zen Egg, and it's literally a desk toy that's a wooden desk toy. And these people instead of a desk toy, they presented this as like a meditation tool for you to create the moment and like be in the moment for yourself. I love this type of stuff. But these guys raised $111,000 on a paperweight. Essentially, it's a paperweight toy that they presented as a meditation tool. So very, very cool. I love this type of thing. So positioning is the easiest because there's virtually a way to do this with all products and a way to think about this to enhance the way that your product can be presented.
Yeah, it's the modern day equivalent of the pet rock for anyone who grew up in the 1980s or 90s.
Exactly. Just rock to have as a friend, right? Okay, so that's product positioning. That's the lowest level. And when you're going through this exercise yourself to launch products, you can often take this type of perspective anyways. Like if you're launching an Amazon product, you always have to think, hey, what am I going to do that allows this to stand out? So this is very applicable to Amazon, but also applicable to launching any type of product. So I use this framework to launch not only products, physical products, but I've launched like software tools and things like this. And a lot of these are, they take the same principles. So the next one is medium. So this means that it's a little bit more difficult than just kind of changing the way you present something. There's two main categories. So the first one is material upgrade or change, and or aesthetic design. So changing the way that something looks, but keeping the functionality the same. So this is a really great example of my favorite example in this category. They're titanium chopsticks. And so chopsticks have been around for thousands of years in the Asian community, and obviously not a new product, but these guys just remade chopsticks and made it into titanium, and they positioned this as aerospace grade titanium, whatever that means. But people clearly liked it, and this is a $270,000 launch, which is really cool because all they did was essentially just change the way that it looked and the material that was there. So really, really good example of being able to make use of this second edge. Another example is a client that we worked with. They're actually based in Bali. Denny, if you've met these guys before, Pangea, they launched a travel towel, which was made from eco bamboo material. So this is an interesting material that they sourced, and instead of microfiber, they replaced it with eco bamboo, and they had a nice little pouch that they added to it. So this raised $200,000 on their most recent launch. Another travel packing cube. So this is a really simple one. All they did was they made the material nicer, sexier. They made it look nicer, and their small functional upgrade here was essentially just bundling all this together in a 7-piece set. And you can tell I like packing cubes. These guys raised $280,000 at their launch. And one more as a really kind of like interesting example. These guys just repositioned a folio case like this, like you carry your notes and this type of thing, and they made it with better materials, but really they positioned this, and this is a point where you can actually combine some of these edges to do not only like upgrade your materials, but you can present this and position this differently. So they targeted the entrepreneurial audience and people that were successful entrepreneurs or visionaries. So that was their kind of angle with this product. And finally, Edge 4. This is, I mean, often if you're starting out or maybe you're just new to this is probably not going to be the one you start off with. But this is some type of more complicated functional upgrade. So, for example, this is a cutlery set where it was collapsible, so they can like twist it on and like break it onto a fork and a spoon and a knife. These guys ended up doing really well, a really crazy product, over €1 million, just from having this kind of like interesting concept for a product. And this is one of my favorites. I'm a plant nerd, so this was as a planter that allows the plants to grow on the outside, and they did an awesome job with this campaign, and they did $6.3 million with this launch. So it's the idea is that you're doing something that's a little bit different than what exists. So most people are not in this category or not interested in this category, and that's okay. But just know that if you had a cool concept or you had an interesting concept that you wanted to launch, there could be a massive market out there for it. You just need the right launch method to minimize your risk to be able to not go broke from trying to launch your product.
Yeah, if you're into the product development, because that's a whole beast in itself, right?
That's a whole different
process
thing, yeah.
Takes many months of prototyping and then waiting for the prototype to be built and then seeing it and then making changes to the prototype, and a lot more time and expense involved in making something more unique like that, right? Like I think I've talked about on the podcast before, the coolest cooler. I believe it was the most funded campaign of all time. This hilarious cooler that had speakers and like all this ridiculous stuff thrown in that just like really was such a ridiculous product that it ended up killing the whole thing because they couldn't actually manufacture this product at scale because it's just too complicated.
Yes. So most of us won't touch this category, but just know that it's possible. And some people, they don't even have to be massive improvements or massive functional upgrades. So often you just might do something tiny, or you might change the shape of like a glass or like a water bottle or something like that, this would fall into this category of being able to, as long as it's kind of changed the way that something is used, that could be really interesting. So yeah, that's just if you are really ambitious, or you have an existing brand, or you're looking to scale into some new product concepts that you've worked with already. So
yeah, I will say this, guys. I won't name what the brands are, but some of Kenji ROI's most successful clients are brands that do create those unique products. And you guys would be surprised that it's not usually anything that's crazy. It's not like some big, super innovative, crazy thing. It's usually a small innovation that they can make to an existing product. And those are some of our most successful clients. So keep that in mind.
Yep. So next is creating your campaign. So this is a key part of what's going to allow you to sell your product. So you're going to need the 3 key brand assets that we talked about earlier, which is photo, copy, and video. So this is going to be, you're investing high quality assets here to make sure that it's going to be something that you're investing in that can be used later on for Amazon, for your next, your launches, your media kits, your social media, your ads, anywhere. So really make sure that you invest in high quality stuff, because this is going to be something that you use everywhere. And when it comes to creating the campaign, I'm not going to go into too much detail about this, but generally we like to keep the funding goal low, less than $30,000. So 10 to 30,000 is a sweet spot. So you want to make sure that you're hitting the funding goal within the first 24 to 48 hours. And we'll talk about kind of what that looks like in terms of the strategy. But the campaign duration is up to 60 days. We generally recommend to keep it around 30 to 45 days for for most campaigns, unless you have a crazy budget or something like that. This is the time frame that you want to aim for.
So, and correct me if I'm wrong, Vance, but if you don't meet your funding goal, then you don't actually get the money from Kickstarter, right? It's like so you really need to be sure that you meet the funding goal. Is that
exactly,
right?
Yeah. It's called all or nothing funding on Kickstarter. On Indiegogo, it's a little bit different. They will give you a portion of it. If you only hit like 15,000 and you want us to hit 20, they'll still give you the 15. But on Kickstarter, you want to make sure that you hit it, because it's all or nothing. Cool. So building your list. So I don't think we have to go into the details of why it's important. I think we've talked a little bit about this, and your audience probably knows the importance of why having a big list is important, or at least a qualified list of people that are really engaged. The biggest thing that I want to point your attention to is one we talked about earlier, is supporting our launches and increasing lifetime value of a customer. So those are super key. So if you have that type of relationship, you can launch 10 products, a dozen products, and people that like you, that like your category, that like your niche, might still be supporting you. And that's if you spend $10 to acquire this person, if you only sold them one product, maybe you only make $30 or $20. But if you sold them 10 products, your lifetime value might be like in the thousands or something like that, depending on the category that you're in. So really important to make sure that you build your list. So when it comes to building a list for crowdfunding launch, we focus on 2 main categories. So the first one is what we call ideal featured customers, and the second one is influencers. So ideal featured customers are really the people that are eventually going to be purchasing your product. So there's a lot of different approaches to this. There's a lot of different ways to do this. There's paid ways, there's free ways. We generally recommend trying the free ways first, because not only are they free, but it also allows you to develop a bit of a more direct connection with the audience. So what we like to do is the most important question to ask always is, where does your customer live, or where do they hang out when it comes to online? So every niche is going to be a little bit different. Your audience might be older, more nerdy, more tech savvy, less tech savvy. You want to find out where they're hanging out. And this is going to be the kind of foundation for setting the strategy of where you're going to start connecting with these people. And Danny, we talked a little bit about this in our podcast that we did a little just recently, is it's really important to kind of consider what it is that we can do to engage with these people in ways that are already where these communities already exist. So what we really like to do is we like to find communities like Facebook groups, Reddit communities, maybe even if you're in a category that makes sense, like local meetups, and connect with the people that are in those audiences, at least at this initial phase. And the idea here is we're trying to build relationships with people that are interested in our product category and have some type of desire to want to give us feedback and connect with what we're trying to do. And so this is the approach that we take at the beginning stages of the product launch, so that we are connecting with people that like, say, for example, coffee, and we reach out to these people, we connect with these people, we engage with them, and we essentially are trying to get them involved in this product launch by saying, hey, what do you think about this? Can you give us some feedback? We know you love coffee because you're in this group. what do you think about these taste enhancing coffee glasses? So there's many different things that we kind of go deeper into when we talk about the approach, but the general idea here is begin connecting with your audience where they hang out, and use this as an opportunity to connect with people to get them involved in the process, which is a very, very different way of thinking than I'm going to build this and then eventually somebody will come buy it because I know the best. I know the best. So this is really the approach that we like to take with ideal future customers. And like I said, a lot of people have found very creative ways to find their audiences, anything from live meetups all the way to different niche communities online. That's really kind of the focus of building that initial audience. And
yeah, and I would just echo what you're saying about focusing on organic marketing strategies before paid, because a lot of people get hung up there as well. So like, it's because of the main digital marketing influencers all just confuse beginners. Like they say ads are great. You can blow up your business real fast. And that's true, you can. But if you haven't figured out your marketing angles, your marketing messaging, your fit with the customers, like who is actually buying your stuff and why, if you haven't really figured that out, then you're going to spend a lot of money on ads before you actually figure that out. So it's way better to get all that stuff sorted and work out the bugs, so to speak, in your messaging and your angles and all those things by actually interacting with people on all these places, which I'm sure you're going to go into. And once that is solid, you have your fire, ads is the fuel to add to the fire, right? It's figuring out all that stuff with ads is not a good idea, especially if you're not a talented digital marketer.
Exactly. And we have people going through our program right now that are building an audience, let's say in the pet category, so the cat category. And he's acquiring 20 to 30 new Facebook group members to his group about every week. And this past week, he tried a different strategy, and he acquired maybe 110 different 110 people to his community. So the idea here, without going into too much detail, the idea here is find out where your community hang out, and how do you create an opportunity for them to get involved in what you're doing by making them feel like this is something that that's a unique opportunity for them to get involved with. So, founder of a company is approaching me with wanting my feedback because I'm in this group and I like cats. You're finding a different way to connect with them in a way that isn't very salesy, because you're not really trying to sell them. You're just trying to say, hey, we like what you're doing. We like the fact that you're in this group and you're passionate about cats. Would you be interested in connecting with us and giving us some feedback? So this is what we find is kind of like the lowest barrier to resistance. People don't get offended when you connect with them in this way. They're not trying to like avoid being sold to, because you're not selling them anything, and it's really organic and it's cheap. And establishing these types of relationships allow you to really later on have strong connections, because at some point somebody like the founder of this company approached me and asked me to get involved in bringing this product to life, or giving me feedback about launching this product. So this is a really awesome approach that I think a lot of us can really benefit from seeing a little bit differently when it comes to launching a product.
Yeah, and I know a lot of you are your question that you probably have is, okay, so, well, how do I go about posting in Reddit and Meetup and all these kind of things? And I think the easiest answer to that is all of you guys are active in some sort of Facebook group or Reddit forum and things like that, right? You kind of understand the social dynamics, and just think about it yourself. If you're scrolling through your favorite Reddit forum or your favorite Facebook group and you see someone with a blatantly promotional post, what's your reaction to it? You're probably just like, this guy needs to screw off, right? But look for some examples of someone who is there, maybe getting some feedback or something. Like, what is the social construct of the group? It's going to be different in your favorite Reddit subreddit or your certain Facebook groups. You kind of have different rules of like how people interact. Just you guys all understand these kind of things. You just got to put yourself on the other side of the fence. And just think about that, right? There's no one size fits all answer for every place you're going online, but you all have it deep down. You all kind of understand these things. It just takes trying to flip the script a little bit.
Exactly. That's well said. Couldn't have said it any better. So just you know these things already. It's nothing new. But the idea here is how can you apply this to make sure that when you're communicating and how you're trying to engage is going to be more effective. Very well said. And then the next category is influencers. So influencers, I don't want to go into too much detail about this, but know that influencers can be extremely powerful. We use influencers a lot in our launches because there's two main benefits to influencers. The first one is that they allow us to get credibility if that's necessary for the product category. And the second one is they have the potential to drive traffic. So we have 5 categories of influencers, not just the traditional Instagram model or Instagram influencer, Twitter influencer, but we have a few categories of influencers, like industry experts, so people that have specific subject matter expertise in a niche, or people that have access to massive communities. So for example, let's say somebody runs like the meetup group for tennis shoes, or like tennis playing in New York or something like that. They might have access to a massive list of people that are playing tennis. And if you're launching a tennis product, imagine being friends with this person and being able to send something out to that audience, right? So influencers are not just people that are posting on Instagram and Twitter. They're going to be people that have an opportunity to give you a bit of leverage in a way that's really unique. So in our situation with launching the cups, we use this for credibility. So we worked with getting feedback from some of these influencers to say that this product works. They love the product. So we worked with some of the best coffee experts in the world to be able to establish credibility for a new product category that we're launching, because we had to do this. It wasn't a product that existed before. So if we're going to convince people that this is something that works and it's a good idea, we need a lot of influence. So we worked with influencers for that capacity. So the idea here is consider how relevant these influencers are. So it's important that you don't want lots of influencers. That's not the idea here. You want to find people that have a relevant audience, or that they're relevant to the way that they can contribute to your product allows you to be able to get some additional benefit, like we mentioned with credibility. So there's going to be lots of ways to find that. A lot of the traditional channels, Google, YouTube channels, blogs, like lots of different ways. So you just have to ask the same question: where is it that influencers in my niche, where are they hanging out? So we want to find out that before we can say, hey, this is the strategy that we're going to use to approach for them. But does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think it's similar to the last point there of, some audiences are hanging out in a subreddit, some are hanging out in a Facebook group and things like that. Really the same thing with influencers and any kind of outreach. There's not one best way to do that. Some influencers are never going to check their Instagram DMs, and then other influencers, that's the only place you're ever going to be able to get a hold of them. So it really is a case by case kind of basis. You just got to, wherever the influencer is the most active, maybe that's the best place. But maybe some of them will never respond, but it's a good idea to hit them from different angles, different messaging and things like that. And there's no one size fits all approach to getting a hold of influencers and doing these kind of things, unfortunately.
Exactly. Yeah. And we just have to use a little bit of kind of detective skills and just problem solving to figure out, okay, well, what's going to work best for our situation. Okay, and so next, launching. Well, the whole point of building a community and an audience and a list is so that when we launch, not only for the context of the launch, there's other benefits to having that list, but for the context of the launch specifically, we want to be able to get our list to engage in purchasing the product within the first 24 to 48 hours. The reason for this is it allows us to jumpstart the Kickstarter algorithm, so we start ranking organically in the platform, and it's going to allow us to start getting more attention organically. Kickstarter might notice us and say, hey, why don't we get these guys out in a newsletter, because I think this is an interesting product, or maybe feature us on social media. That's going to be able to allow for traction to kind of take place. So with us, we had our funding goal of 20,000, and we hit that within the first 12 hours, I think. So specifically with this coffee glass campaign that I was talking about earlier. And the other way to, here we go. So we want to, this is optional, but we really want to take advantage of this as much as possible, as long as you're open to the idea of taking advantage of PR. So the idea with PR is often people are willing to, a lot of these features were not paid. Sometimes you can take advantage of paid features to have some interesting feature, like a publicity within some of these audiences. But the idea here is we can make use of PR to allow us to drive external traffic to our campaign page as well. So not only that, once these articles are written, if they're on certain types of blogs or on certain types of trend websites or whatever they might be, this stays there forever. So you're going to have credibility for your product whenever people search Eventsy, my product name. They're going to see a lot of stuff on Google about us. So it's not just it's not a sketchy product. It's something that people can trust because there's enough stuff out there that they can feel confident about it. And the final point here is just to leverage your community. So once you acquire customers from the Kickstarter launch, you can immediately get in touch with them. So this isn't like Amazon where you're restricted from contacting them. You can immediately get in touch with them. You can immediately ask them, hey, like, are you okay with sharing this? Do you have a friend or two friends that would be interested in these coffee glasses? Please support us because we're trying to hit this next part of our goal. And you can engage with them using different ideas like contests and giveaways. And at that point, it's about your creativity. How can you engage somebody who cares about what you're doing? And for us, not only do we like to do contests, we like to get our community involved by sending them surveys and getting them involved and feeling like they're part of our community so that they feel kind of invested with our brand. So that's something that you can use during the campaign to make sure that you can continue the momentum within the campaign.
Yeah, and I really like that too, because it's kind of a different idea of your typical email list. Like typically to get someone on your list or in your audience, you're bribing them with something, right? They're not necessarily even interested in really your brand or your product. They just want your discount or your free guide or whatever the heck you're promising to bribe them to get on your email list, right? But it's a little bit of a different premise with these Kickstarter customers. Right? It's a little bit more community driven. They're probably a lot more likely to be interested in these different updates you're sending out to them and things like that. So I really like this approach because of that.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll mention this really quickly, but we sent out a survey, like a Google form survey, really simple, in our first campaign when we had about 3,000 backers, and we didn't really know what to expect. We wanted to just ask them about their coffee habits and what types of products are you interested in, how often you drink coffee, etc. And within 2 weeks, we didn't give them anything for this. We had about 2,400 responses for this is literally a Google form that we sent to our audience, and people came back with lots of replies. It's like, this is unimaginable for something like Amazon, where we're trying to pull teeth to get people to opt into our email list with whatever insert card we put in there. So this is really a different type of audience, and we can really take advantage of it in a way that allows us to scale our brand in a different way. And next is, once the campaign is over, of course, we want to make sure we fulfill our orders. So you get paid, like I mentioned earlier, from Kickstarter within the first 15 days after the campaign closes. What we have a strategy that allows you to move over to selling on Indiegogo. So you can continue selling pre-orders even before you receive the inventory. So in general, we see at least an extra 20 to 100% increase in sales from selling on Kickstarter to moving on Indiegogo. So in this situation, we raised about 220 on Kickstarter, and we did about another 90,000 on Indiegogo before we received the inventory. So we're continuing to get pre-orders, we're getting more cash, and this is going to be very, very favorable for, of course, many situations, because we're moving inventory, but we're getting more cash that we can use to potentially invest in whatever initiatives that we want to.
So is that moving your social proof from Kickstarter to Indiegogo? It's the combined numbers from the Kickstarter campaign on your new Indiegogo campaign? Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know you could do that.
Yep, you can definitely do that, and it allows you to get immediately social proof, and from there you can continue your pre-orders. So you don't need to move to your website, you don't need to sell on Amazon. In fact, you can't do those things because you don't have inventory. It actually makes a lot of sense to sell to an audience that already understands crowdfunding, and they know what's happening. So you're just going to get more pre-orders that way. And of course, once you get your inventory, you want to fulfill your promise. And the key thing here is you want to keep these people happy, because these are your customers now. You have a relationship with them. You want to make sure that you are keeping them excited about the brand, and they feel like they're valued as a part of your community. Because we're now thinking about relationships very differently than we think about if we acquire a customer on Amazon. And finally, this is perhaps the most important part. So we talked about Kickstarter not being the main event. This is kind of the key thing here, is that we want to make sure that we can use Kickstarter to move into what we do next in a way that's going to be successful. So one of the things that we really like to do is we like to use the Kickstarter campaign as an opportunity to generate user-generated content. So UGC for short. What that means is people creating content around the product, so that we can have this on our website, we can use this on social media, we can use this for ads. Really, this is something that you don't really get with Amazon. There's no way that you can get somebody to do this in general. They don't care enough. They're not passionate enough. With Kickstarter, using the opportunity of delivering the product to them and finding some type of way to engage them is an awesome way to be able to start building not only fans that really care about what you do because they're engaged, but at the end of the day, you're going to be able to get them to start creating content for you. And this is something that is going to live with your brand forever. So with our brand right now, with our coffee brand at Costa Brewhouse, on average, we see about 2 to 5 posts that are organic shares on a regular basis. So we're not engaging these people. They're just like the product. They like to just show, hey, they're making coffee this morning, or they're gonna do like a cute, like really cool pour shot from the coffee going into the glass, and like really epic style photo. These people are just uploading content to Instagram. This is essentially free content that people are making for us on a regular basis that is driving our Instagram channel. So very, very cool to be able to leverage kind of like those types of opportunities to be able to build your brand and have a presence that's not just on Amazon or just on an email list.
Yeah, there is an entire community of people, right? It's like the unboxing crowd, the product review crowd, right? They don't make these videos about products that aren't new and aren't interesting in some way, right? They're not going and like picking up some 5-year-old product and unboxing and reviewing it. They exclusively focus on these types of products, right? So I guess that's specifically a Kickstarter or product launch in some kind of respect benefit.
Exactly. And if you can launch, there's something about your product that is going to be appealing. You just got to get people excited about it to want to share. And that's all really up to you to be creative and how you want to do that. So we do a lot of things like contests and like different things to encourage people to create this kind of foundation. Okay, and I'll walk through a few case studies because I think this is really interesting to know how people have taken advantage of this model. One of the most famous ones is called Peak Design. You might have heard of these guys, Danny. It started as one guy in his basement who designed this kind of like strap system, and he did need the money to launch. So he actually needed the money. He launched his first campaign and raised a couple $100,000. And he is one of the most successful examples of using this model because he launched a campaign, 1 or 2 campaigns every single year. So he launched his first 4. They started becoming really big, like $1 million campaigns. He started getting into travel in the 7-figure campaign launches. And most recently, he launched a tripod, which is something that was generally reserved for like massive camera companies. So he's going head to head with some of these massive players, and he built his entire audience based on crowdfunding. So I call this compound interest marketing. The idea is you're launching a campaign, you're building an audience, you're compounding this by launching the next product and getting people excited and building more audience. And every time you launch a new product, you're going to be able to build this larger and larger. So this guy now is going head to head with some of the biggest camera giants in the world. And he started as one guy in his basement. So he sells on Amazon, he sells on his own website. He has global distribution and camera stores everywhere that you can imagine. And in 2019, he was doing about 65 to 70 million. So really, really cool brand that's really able to take advantage of that Kickstarter model. So that's like a really crazy example. Not all products have to be that successful on crowdfunding. These guys are called Better Back. They had like a back brace type of tool where it helps you kind of position your posture better. So these guys launched 3 campaigns, a little less than 3 million raised with about 4,700 backers and fans. These guys took that and launched on Shark Tank to get publicity. So they went to Shark Tank and said, hey, we got pre-orders even before we launched your product. What can you give us? So their valuation for their company was like really high. And I think they made a deal. I'm not sure if they followed through with it, but it was Barbara that made that deal with them. And now they're selling on Amazon, their own website. They're selling on TV. They're selling third-party retailers as well. So really interesting kind of a way to take advantage of that. And finally, not all campaigns have to be massive. These are actually people that we know really well. Treated Tub is, the organic skincare category is super, super saturated. These guys launched 1 campaign, raised about $40,000. They acquired a handful of fans from this, so a little bit over 800. And they ended up scaling this to, at first, Amazon. So now I think they're at about 250 on Amazon and 250 off Amazon in terms of revenue, and they've grown to 20 team members. So these guys have taken that launch with that community and scaled this into other types of opportunities for them to do well on Amazon and off Amazon as well. So that's it. What do you think about Danny being able to share the bonuses that I have and then also answer some questions?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's one quick question we had from Dave, which is what is the lead time from concept to launch on average?
Cool. Do you mind if I answer this after, or?
Or sure, yeah. If you want to go into your bonuses first.
Cool. Yeah, let's do that. So bonuses for making it this far. So you guys have been super patient and you've made it to this point. So want to give you a bit of something that'll help you if you're interested in considering the pre-order launch model. So the first one is absolutely free. So if you're interested, I'll get you the link in a second. But the idea here is that we have a 3-part video training series and a few guides that you can use to kind of start understanding what the launch process looks like. So if you're considering this and you think this is interesting to you, or you have a product brewing up in your mind, this is a nice free resource that you'll have access to. The second one is we are doing a case study group for our Launch Accelerator Blueprint. So the Launch Accelerator Blueprint is the structure and the strategy that we use to launch our products that we've done for ourselves, but also when we used to do this as an agency and as consultants. So really what we're doing is this upcoming month, we're looking for a handful of people to join the program and to create successful case studies before the initial rollout of our program. So the idea here is that we want to take you from concept, wherever you are with your product now, to be able to raise, to launch the product on crowdfunding and raise what we say is 30 to 50K pre-orders. And that's at a $50 price point, that's only 600 units. So it's not a crazy not a crazy goal, but it's very, very much doable. So if you're interested, we'll send you, we're gonna drop the link in a second, but we're looking for up to 12 people to join this stage of the program. So and if you're not certain and you're not sure your product category or niche is a fit, we're going to offer, as a part of being with Danny here, going to offer 8 free strategy sessions. So we can just jump on a call and you can tell me what it is that you had in mind, what it is that you want to work on, or what is it that you want to launch. But you have to meet these requirements. You have to be launching a product within the next 8 months, and it has to be a B2C product, not a B2P product, not a digital product or anything like that. It has to be like a physical product. And together we'll find out if Kickstarter is a fit. And if it is, if it's not, I'll definitely let you know. I'm very, very honest with when it comes to this. But if it is, you'll have an opportunity to join our case study program and $2,000 scholarship, so a discount off the price of the program. So then the way to get access to that is just our website here, livemyplayground.com. And if you want the resources, you can just click the resources. But if you choose to opt in for the case study program or the free strategy session, you'll just click a different button, but then you'll also get the other resources as well. So you're not you don't have to do both.